So up first, we have Janet Adamana. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of Sound, Phrase, and Fury, an online music magazine focusing on independent musicians and industry professionals, not usually covered in mainstream media. Over the span of its first 12 months, the magazine has grabbed the attention of over 5,000 readers from as far and exotic as Japan, Australia, and Bangladesh. Janet is an avid music lover, concert junkie, and a graduate of creative communications at Red River College.
All right, so like Callie mentioned, my name is Janet Adamana, and I am the founder and editor-in-chief of Sound, Phrase, and Fury magazine. Also on our team, we have Steph Shields, who is our promotion director, and Ali Sigurdsson, who is our associate editor. So SPF is an online music magazine that focuses on independent bands and industry professionals from all over the world. We pick our featured artists based on their talents and their undying passion for what they do. One thing that we really take a lot of pride in is providing our readers with these the deep and inspiring stories behind these artists as well as their music. One story that I really want to share is that of a guy named Joe Candelaria from a band called Forever Came Calling. I first heard about these guys after watching a documentary about the Vans Warped Tour, which is the longest running touring festival, and that documentary was called No Room for Rock Stars. And in the film, Joe and his bandmates packed up this dingy old van and followed the 2-month-long tour. They stopped on a bunch of the stops that they could and just tried to sell their music and get the band as much exposure as possible. So back in 2011, I interviewed Joe for what was then SPF, the blog, and he was talking to me and he told me all about how the band works several crappy jobs on the side just to support what they do. They pay for everything out of their own pocket. For the Warped Tour specifically, they slept in the van and they stood outside for hours and hours, like in the heat and in the rain, just trying to get as many people to listen to their music without any sort of guarantee that any of it would even work and get them get them anywhere at all. So at one point in this interview, I did ask him, I said, this looks and sounds so hard, it sounds like it's emotionally draining, you don't even know what's gonna happen with it, so why do it at all? And he just laughed and said, well, it would be a waste not to try. And that line alone really hit me hard because the entire time that I was writing this blog, I sort of had this secret suppressed desire to make SPF into a magazine, but as life would have it, doubts and worries come into play, and like most people, I would have rather let that dictate what I did with my life. But just hearing Joe talk and say those simple words really sparked the fire that is SPF. Fast forward 3 years later, here we are now, basically about to embark on probably the biggest year that we've had so far. We are now a full-color bi-monthly magazine with a solid team behind it who, thanks to them, we've grown so much bigger than I ever thought we would in the magazine's entire lifetime. Like Callie said, we do now have a worldwide readership. Sometimes we even get readers from Japan, Bangladesh, Germany, Russia, sometimes even countries I've never even heard of. So that's really cool. We also recently launched our web store, where right now we're selling t-shirts and sticker packs. And at the end of the month, we will be launching these fancy little CD packs called the SPF magazine packs, and those will have 10 digital SPF issues on it. Another really exciting thing that's happening this summer for us is Jordan Voth of Bleed American, who's a local pop-punk band. He's also a spectacular producer on the side, and he's right now working on the SPF Get Lost in Sound compilation album, and that's going to feature 10 unreleased singles from 10 different artists in the city. To go along with that, we have our first official Get Lost in Sound launch party, and that's going to be a launch party not just for us, but also some of the performers that are going to be there, as a lot of them are either relatively new to the scene or they're releasing new albums and EPs in and around that time. So that's something to definitely check out once it comes around. All in all, I just have to say that the past few years with SPF have been a complete and utter whirlwind ride. Like, all of us in the team have had the pleasure and the honor of meeting and interviewing probably the most inspiring and talented people on the planet. And for us, as a magazine that's directly inspired by musicians and their sort of unfaltering motivation to just do what they love no matter what, I'm pretty proud to say that SPF is always going to focus on these kinds of men and women, you know, musicians that sort of paddle these little ships of hope through seas of unforgiving audiences, just to hopefully reach as many people as possible and really share their art. And with this year so far, that how it's been, and to see us where we were before, to see us where we are now, and to kind of look into the future and see where we're definitely going later on, I can't help but keep hearing Joe's voice in the back of my head saying, you know, and think, this would have been definitely a waste not to try. All right.